How do you deal with crowds of people when you're taking a trip? I'm Joseph. This is Input English. In a previous video, I pointed out that I'm in my travel planning mode because a month from now, I'm going to be underway on a vacation that's going to last about a week. It's going to be a road trip, and it's going to be in the desert southwest of the United States. Whenever we travel, we should anticipate that we may encounter crowds of people. Some places are more likely to be crowded than others, and the question is, how can we cope with that? How can we make sure that these crowded conditions don't ruin our experience? Today, I have 10 points that I've put together. These are the steps that I am taking to make sure that crowded conditions don't ruin my experience. Number one, acceptance. A lot of destinations attract a lot of people, and we have to accept that this is going to happen and not be surprised or angered by it. I can remember years ago, we went to Rome and visited Trevi Fountain in the evening. It was beautiful, but there were throngs of people. There were just so many people, and they were noisy, and they were doing lots of things that interfered with me getting the kind of photograph that I thought I should make. I can remember at the time being very frustrated at how busy Trevi Fountain was. So my first tool for crowded conditions is acceptance. It's the way it is. In English, we might say, it is what it is. We don't have to like it, it is what it is. Or in Spanish, es lo que hay. That's the way it is. We don't have to like it, but that's the way it is. The other side of acceptance that I use is a sense of humor. If I go to Trevi Fountain and I find it very busy and noisy, and I catch myself getting upset, I need to just simmer down and realize how funny it is that I would think it was any other way. It's the way it is. How comical it is that I would have expected it to be different. Now, you can use planning and timing to mitigate the effects of crowds. You can show up early. You can go off season. A friend of mine loved to travel in Italy, but he hated the crowds. His solution, he always went in the winter. He always went when people thought that the weather would be miserable. And what he found was he never stood in lines and he never had trouble with big crowds. He went off season. So off-season travel is an option. In the United States, people frequently travel in coordination with their children's school schedule. With that in mind, you can anticipate that people travel during the summer when school is off. They travel during the Christmas vacation, the Christmas holidays, and they travel during spring break. For the rest of us, we can anticipate that those are going to be busy travel times. So you can be sure that my planned trip coming up in the spring is not going to be during spring break. The third way to deal with crowds is to choose destinations that are a little off the beaten path, a little more obscure, things that are not the usual destinations. If you go to the Tower of London, the Eiffel Tower, Trevi Fountain, or a bunch of other obvious destinations, you're going to encounter crowds. But there are other destinations that are very worthy of visiting that are less traveled. My fourth approach to crowds is to choose travel that is strenuous. This is done by the National Park Service in the United States. If you want to go to a scenic overlook and snap a picture with the family without getting far from the car, without exerting yourself, there are going to be a lot of people there. If, on the other hand, you choose a multi-hour backcountry hike to a destination that's difficult to attain, then you're going to see very few people. I illustrate that with something we did many years ago with my kids when we were traveling. We were in Zion National Park. Zion National Park in Utah is super popular, and it has a lot of people visiting it every year. At the northern extreme of that park, the road ends in a parking lot in the Narrows section. You can walk on a paved sidewalk to the river, the Virgin River, and it's wide, it's wheelchair accessible, it's lovely. But at the end of the sidewalk, you're in the river. That riverbed goes north. If you go upstream, that riverbed will lead you north for up to 16.5 miles. But most people are not equipped or prepared to do that. You need river shoes or old sneakers. You need to be able to balance on the slippery, uneven surfaces of the riverbed. You need to be able to rescue yourself if you fall into a pool of deep water. You need to anticipate situations in which you could get injured. We had planned to walk the Narrows. Now, we didn't go 16.5 miles to the north. We went less than 1 mile. But what I observed is that after we'd gone a few hundred yards, there were no people around us because most people stopped at the edge of the river on the sidewalk, took a look, snapped a picture, and went back to the car. We chose a more strenuous activity and prepared for it. My fifth strategy is to make reservations. It's not always available to you, but increasingly it is. The other day I took a trip to a local county park and they had reservations available because they didn't want the park to get overloaded with visitors. They had a quota system that only so many people would be admitted per day, and that prevented overcrowding. To make reservations for some locations that can get busy requires pre-planning. Number 6 is to choose activities that are equipment intensive. That goes back to our trip in the Narrows. If we had tried to walk the Narrows without proper foot gear, for instance, it wouldn't have worked. There are activities where you have to have the right equipment to do what you need to do. My 7th strategy for avoiding the crowds is to choose remote, inaccessible areas. If where you're going requires a 4-hour hike, you're probably not going to see a lot of people on that. Number 9 is an unusual adaptation. I entitled it Novel Approaches. If you're in a busy, crowded place and there are a lot of people, you can't accept the presence of the people, but when you go to make photographs, you can use a photographic technique that de-emphasizes the people. What I'm talking about is pinhole photography. I'm going to talk about this in another video, maybe more than one video. Pinhole photography is fascinating. Pinhole photography is done with a camera, frequently with film, but sometimes with a digital sensor. But instead of a lens, the front of the camera is blocked except for a very small pinhole. This allows an image to be formed on the film or on the sensor, and you can make a photograph with no lens. The pinhole is very small, and it allows only a very small amount of light to pass. So the exposures tend to be quite long. If you photograph a location with a pinhole camera and your exposure time is quite long, the movement of the people will mean that you don't really see them in the picture. There's a lot of information on pinhole photography on the internet and on YouTube. I'm fascinated by pinhole photography, and like I said, I'm going to make one or more videos on the subject in coming months. And number 10, my final way to cope with crowds. I consider crowds part of the adventure, part of the unknown, part of the discovery. So when I'm on a trip and I encounter a big crowd, I might review in my head ways to mitigate that crowd, or I might just say, well, it's part of the experience. In many locations, you want a crowd because they're part of the experience for sure. This deserves a quick story. Years ago, I was with my wife and her sister in Venice. As I recall, they had never been there, but I had been there twice before. Now, Venice is not very difficult to navigate. It's not huge, and the street names and labels on the corners of the buildings give you a pretty good idea where you're going. It's pretty hard to get lost in Venice. You may get disoriented, but you won't really get lost. So in the evening after dinner, we decided to take a walk through the streets of Venice. It was very crowded, but it was a very festive experience. It was exciting, it was interesting, and it was comfortable. It was like being at a giant party. I also took this opportunity to hatch a little plan. We were staying fairly near to the train station in a B&B. We'd had dinner at a restaurant within easy walking distance, and my plan was to hike us across the island to San Marcos Square. But I didn't let on what I was doing. I didn't tell anybody what my destination was. I was just walking through the streets with my wife and her sister in tow. It was very pleasant, very crowded, very festive, and this walk was punctuated by a lot of stops to look in store windows, to smell aromas coming out of restaurants. It was lots of fun along the way. As we approached San Marcos Square, our path took us through a very narrow alleyway, and then between two open-air restaurants, and once we had passed them, we were on San Marcos Square. It opened up in front of us in full display. As we arrived, there was a small orchestra playing live music. There were people eating by candlelight at these open-air restaurants. There were children playing with toys with little light features, and they were throwing them. So it was very much an exciting carnival experience as we arrived in San Marcos. This, of course, got a very positive response from my fellow travelers. If we had taken that same walk without crowds of people involved, it would have been boring. Sometimes we need crowds of people to have a good experience. I invite comments below, and if you like videos like this, be sure to click on this one next. See you soon.